Hi everyone, my name is Meg Sheehan. I'm down here today at the end of Hedge Road, which is right off of Route 3A, kind of near the Courthouse Park in North Plymouth.
Hi, I'm duBois with the River Watershed Association. Been in the area for 50 years. I did not grow up here, but I feel like it's in my roots.
And as you might have heard, there's a large housing project that's proposed for this area. It's kind of where I grew up and my family's from this area. And right now I'm standing on a culvert, a bridge over a stream that comes down from Hedge Pond. If you drive on Route 3A, I'm sure you're familiar with all the swans that people love in Hedge Pond. Well, that comes all the way down here and goes out to the ocean. Behind me is Cape Cod Bay. We have Jesse's Boatyard over here. And then over here we have the 6-story apartment building or condominium building. And when we walk over this way, we can see the bike path that the town of Plymouth put in. I'm not really sure how this came about, but here it is. And you can see this chain link fence. Well, that chain link fence marks a federal Superfund site. People might remember back in the 80s, there was a lot of hazardous waste and midnight dumping around Plymouth at a lot of different locations. And so there were 2 empty tanks there from the cordage factory operations, and a company called Cannons Engineering dumped the hazardous waste into those tanks. It came out that there was hazardous waste in there and they had to do a cleanup. And it's still a deed restricted parcel, so it's not clean by any means. And we understand that there are high levels of arsenic in the soil around here. And if you walk down this way, you would come to Courthouse Park, where the cordage factory was. A lot of families from North Plymouth came originally from Italy or Portugal to work at the factory, including my great-grandfather who worked there as a kid. Now they have a museum, but this whole area here was part of the cordage factory. And in the 60s, my family bought it in order to expand L. Knife & Son. My great-grandfather had the warehouse first on Route 3A at the corner of Hedge Road and 3A there on the corner, and had the garage behind the house. Then he bought the warehouse at the end of Hedge Road here, right across the street where some of the homes are going to go. And then in the 60s, my father bought this piece.
And we used this warehouse for our business operations. And then my uncle, David Crawley, who was a well-known architect from North Plymouth, he designed this building. He was actually on the Zoning Board of Appeals in Plymouth, and he helped write the zoning bylaws for the town of Plymouth. So zoning and planning and wise land use in Plymouth has always been really important to me and my family.
And so if we walk over a little closer, at the time it was kind of a revolutionary idea. My uncle studied with Frank Lloyd Wright, and he made kind of buildings like this. And he got those red bricks specially made, and they're not horizontal, they're vertical. And that was because they were supposed to replicate the look of a Budweiser can. And my family was in the beer distribution business. So this is where L. Knife had its offices and warehouse during the 60s, 70s, until we moved to Kingston in 1983. And, you know, many of us work there, and I worked there when I was in high school in the office. And part of the Jones River Watershed Association's mission is to restore our streams and remove dams. So we're down here today
and save Cape Cod Bay.
And save Cape Cod Bay and all the herring runs and the eel runs that go out to the bay. And we are here today to see what's happening in this wetland area. This was, as I mentioned, the stream that goes all the way up to Hedge Pond, and I know that part of it they buried when they built those apartments there. And then my father in the 60s or 70s built this pond here, and I have photographs. We used to have little fishing contests here with employees from the company would come down on Saturday and go fishing and see the eels that would come up over the through the culvert here. And one of the things my father keeps saying is, I blocked the way for those eels. I feel so badly about that.
So we're here to restore that.
We're here to restore that and see where that culvert comes in over there.
Yeah, that's what
right?
I want to do.
That's
yeah.
what we want to do.
Yep. That's
Go
what
over
we want.
there.
I'm going to put my boots on though.
We just followed the pipe from up there on the Hedge Road, Sandry Drive parcel.
So this is a big pipe, a culvert, as you can see. This goes all the way up to Hedge Pond on Route 3A. And so if you've seen the swans up in that pond, everyone loves Hedge Pond, this is where it meets the ocean. This would be its natural spring, its outflow to Cape Cod Bay. Eventually, here we are. This is Plymouth Harbor, and this is the cordage park over here, where the ships used to come in and bring the cordage from South America to make the rope at the rope factory. So this is a really historic part of Plymouth, and it would be really great to see all of this restored and the stream restored to its natural state. And right up here in front of me, looking up towards Hedge Road, is the Superfund site that was a dumping ground for a lot of toxic chemicals and is still a deed-restricted location where no one is supposed to be recreating or building on it, yet it's less than 100 feet away from these new condos that they're planning to put in. And there's really a lot of questioning about how that work at the site, the excavation, would disturb any soils, which would obviously flow off the land into these culverts and drain and out there into the bay.
We've got Plymouth Harbor over here where there are lots of shellfish beds already that are compromised by all the E. coli that's in Plymouth Harbor. That's why we have to upgrade the septic system, the sewage treatment plant. So we've got a lot of water quality issues here in Plymouth. All right, Schooner Way condos. When the development was proposed, the town had a zoning bylaw, or still does, for the waterfront district, and it required any developer developing property on the waterfront to provide public access to the beach, because this is a public beach, at least below high water. And the public has a right to fish, fowl, and navigate between high and low tide. So the town approved that Schooner Way development without any public access. So we challenged that in Superior Court, and we were trying to settle with the developers to provide at least a little path so that people could park and bring canoes and whatnot down to the waterfront. But the town fought against that, and the judge sided with the town, so they went ahead and built the condos. But yeah, this is a special area, and at the time that they took down, that Schooner Way condo building took down half of High Cliff. So as we all know, Sacco and Vanzetti lived on Cherry Street, and I always thought I could picture them coming down here because they have writings that they wrote from jail about coming to a cliff and overlooking the water. So I always envisioned them, being from North Plymouth and coming down here and looking out over Cape Cod Bay and Plymouth Bay from that location. So I really thought it had a lot of historic meaning for the community. And here's the sign. The zoning approval has been granted. We haven't seen the final decision yet, but the next stop will be the Conservation Commission, and they have to issue 2 wetlands permits, 1 for each of the projects. And so we're really urging people to come out and pay attention to the wetlands process. We're really surrounded by wetlands here, wetlands over there. We have a riverfront area in terms of the stream coming down, and some wetlands behind us.
So the other thing they should take a look at is, if this is a 40B project and sea level is rising, this is going to be flooded. And unfortunately they allowed a 40B project in Kingston, very close to here, that was right adjacent to today's flood zone. I'm certain this is a today flood zone. They shouldn't be doing that, and there should be a challenge to the state and to the Mass Housing Court, or whatever the heck they're called. They don't have a clue about that 40B doesn't mean just getting people to buy a house. It means getting them to be able to stay there.
Right, right. And one thing
for longer than a year or two.
One thing we did look at was the coastal resilience study that the town of Kingston had done. And so, you know, we're almost on the border of Kingston right here. Right. And it does extend down this way, almost to this whole area. So Plymouth hasn't done anything like that in terms of a coastal resilience study and what will this be like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So I think that Kingston study is applicable to this area, and certainly the ZBA should have looked at it. I don't think anybody brought it to their attention, but certainly the Conservation Commission should be looking at that.
Do they have a municipal vulnerability plan, an MVP plan, Plymouth?
They've been doing a lot of studying, but I'm not sure they have a plan. They might have something for downtown, but they really haven't done, as I understand, the whole.
Well, there will be, if they do, there's going to be topography associated with that.
There's nothing for this area.
But the downtown thing.
Yeah.
And you can pretty much deduce topography from this, both from Google Earth and from the LiDAR that was done by the state. I think CZM did it quite a while ago. You can get the topography off of those things, and then you can correlate, because if sea level rises to a level on both sides of this, it's going to rise here too. Not even yet. Okay, so you're not going to see them swimming, especially with us walking.
You won't see them swim?
You won't, not with us walking around.
Oh.
They'll be in the sand.
In the sand.
Yeah, they'll be hiding.
Hiding in
especially because it's daylight.
Hiding in the sand because it's daylight, okay.
In the mud, in the sand. And
so what would you do? Like kind of stir it up?
Well, you just kind of look around, you know, and if you scratch it, then they'll swim and they'll dive back in again, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And
and we're looking for like this size. You think they'd be like this, or what?
Any squirmy size you can see.
Like how big would they be? This
they can be as big as your pinky, or as big as your. No, they're not going to be like that. Anything that's this long is already at the Sargasso Sea. They're not going to be around for you to see them.
Okay.
They're headed out there. They're going to be going at night. It's more likely that they would do that in the late summer or fall.
Okay.
Right now, the juveniles, are eating to get big enough in order to make it to a headwater, so that they can live out their life there.
They're coming up.
They're coming in from the ocean. Well, actually, they're probably in the estuary, so they could be in here, living in here. We have them in the Jones River, anywhere from glass eel to 5 inches to the estuary.
Okay. So there's no reason they wouldn't be in here.
No, they're not really, except for how filthy it is.
How what?
Filthy it is. The amount of plastic in here is unbelievable.
Really? In comparison, you're saying?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to go to the selectmen and I'm going to say to them, I thought Kingston was bad, but when I waded through your stream, it is disgusting, and you guys really got to do something. People walking up there and then they just fling their Coke bottle because it's too heavy to carry now? What?
Imagine.
Or here, the mask that filters out dust. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, the stormwater running off from Route 3A is probably coming down here, right?
I want to know what's on the other side of this. Should I go up and over? So I'm enjoying the stream that's flowing down next to Hedges Road and near the old railroad track where the train used to come and stop in Plymouth. And I wanted you to know that there's a good reason why it stopped, and it comes across the marsh in Kingston, which is totally floodplain. So where it comes across the marsh is a quarter of a mile a quarter to a half a mile from the mouth of the river. It faces northeast. So when we have a nor'easter, it blows all the water from the bay into the estuary of the Jones River, and it floods the railroad track. It also floods the 40B housing that was just approved in Kingston because the state approved it under 40B. Although they should not have, because it's adjacent to today's floodplain. In Kingston, I was talking about Kingston, it's adjacent to North Plymouth. Kingston did a study that we published in 2022. It's called the Landing Maritime Resilience Plan. It was funded by the Seaport Economic Development Council to the town of Kingston. It was a $125,000 study. And it studied sea level rise so that we would understand how to move our buildings that have been there since the 1700s, so that we could adapt to sea level rise, because we're in the estuary. We're another mile upstream of what I just talked about, but we're still in the estuary. And the LMR plan is located on the Town of Kingston website. It's kingstonma.gov. Search LMR plan, and you can read it. And if you just pay, you don't have to pay attention to our site. If you just pay attention to the projections of sea level rise, it'll be interesting and informative for you. In my case, that when the engineers came, they said, "See your roof, Pine?" I said, "Yeah, I see my roof. 2100, that's where the water level is. That's where the water level is, 10 feet from the ground." And remember that we're tidal, so we have a 8-foot range of tide every day, on average. If it's a nor'easter, I could have 14 feet coming at me. And that has happened there, which is why we did the LMR plan, because we already experienced significant flooding there. I think this site is definitely going to experience significant flooding. You're lower than me. You're closer to the big O than me. And this, I don't know how, this culvert will be full of water, but it'll be pushing inland. Yes, now it's draining out because it's low tide out there right now. We walked up from the bay to try to track and look for eels. I'm still determined to find some, by the way. But I think that this whole area is very vulnerable because you have pockets of floodplain. And where you have pockets of floodplain, it's going to flood. It's going to flood if it's a hazardous waste site. It's going to flood if it's a 40B housing development. It's going to flood if it's an apartment building with a basement and all your generators and all your equipment is down there. It's going to flood. You don't want to make yourself more vulnerable going into the future. You want to give yourself room to retreat. That's how we should be thinking now. And that's not an environmentalist perspective, that's a scientific perspective. And all the science right now is saying it's getting worse than we imagined, it's getting worse than we projected, and we better start getting prepared for it. Not only try and rein ourselves in from, the use of fossil fuels and all that, that's accelerating the warming, which is accelerating the stopping of the Atlantic meridian current that is the stabilizing factor for our weather on Earth. And people don't understand that. When that stops, we're done for. And right now, that's escalating. So the current science is enough to choke me up completely and say, we all have to get behind this. Not only stop trashing and littering your streams and ponds where the fish live that we eat. You need fish, you need water, you need it all clean. We need to do better in terms of respecting that everything that we depend on comes from the environment under our feet. Especially now.